To keep seeing more stories, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. If you like this video, share your feedback in the comments section. Midnight confrontation. The fluorescent lights of Miami General Hospital flickered overhead as Sophia Bennett pushed her cleaning cart down the empty corridor. Her feet ached, her back throbbed, and exhaustion pulled at every muscle in her body. The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m. Just 13 more minutes until her shift ended. She paused outside room 304, leaning against the wall for a moment. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach, still flat enough that no one had noticed the secret growing inside her. 2 months. 2 months since she'd walked away from the only man she'd ever loved. 2 months since her world had shattered into pieces she couldn't put back together. Sophia finished her rounds mechanically, her mind elsewhere. She remembered the way Victor used to wait up for her when she worked late at the design firm. How he'd have her favorite tea ready, how he'd massage her shoulders while she told him about difficult clients. That man seemed like a stranger now, replaced by the image of him laughing with Julia in his office, their heads close together over blueprints she had no business understanding. Rachel, her closest friend since college, had been the one to show her the photos. Julia's hand on Victor's arm. The two of them having dinner at Marcello's, their special restaurant. The evidence had seemed overwhelming. The locker room was quiet as Sophia changed out of her scrubs. She caught her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her honey-colored hair, once styled perfectly, now pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked tired. She looked broken. But she was surviving. That had to count for something. The parking garage felt emptier than usual as Sophia made her way to her car. She'd sold the Mercedes Victor had given her for their anniversary, unable to stand the reminder. The old Honda Civic she drove now was reliable enough, even if the air conditioning barely worked and the passenger door stuck sometimes. Her keys jingled in her hand as she approached the car. The sound echoed off the concrete walls, seeming louder in the late-night silence. She was fumbling with the lock when she heard them. Footsteps. Expensive shoes on concrete. A rhythm she knew better than her own heartbeat. Sophia's breath caught. Her pulse began to race. She told herself she was imagining things, that exhaustion was playing tricks on her mind. But then his voice cut through the darkness, smooth and deep and achingly familiar. "Did you really think you could disappear, Sophia?" She turned slowly, her hand instinctively moving to protect her stomach. Victor Romano stood 15 feet away, partially hidden in shadow. The overhead light caught the sharp angles of his face, the intensity in his dark eyes. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, his tie loosened as if he'd been wearing it all day. He looked tired too. And angry. And something else she couldn't quite name. "I'm not hiding," Sophia managed, though her voice came out shakier than she intended. "I'm living my life." Victor took a step closer. Then another. "Living your life? Is that what you call this? Working night shifts, driving this piece of junk, pretending I don't exist? You don't get to judge my choices," she shot back, finding her voice. "Not after everything." "Everything?" His laugh was bitter. "You mean after you walked out without a conversation? After you blocked my number, moved out of our home, and vanished for 3 months?" Sophia's hands trembled. She wanted to run, but her feet felt rooted to the concrete. "I saw the pictures, Victor. I saw you with her." "With who?" He was close enough now that she could see the confusion in his eyes. "What are you talking about?" "Julia." The name tasted like poison. "Your business partner. Or was that just what you called her?" Victor's expression shifted from confusion to understanding to something that looked like devastation. "Julia?" "Sophia, Julia is my cousin. My cousin who was helping me design your anniversary surprise." The words hit her like a physical blow. Sophia felt the world tilt beneath her feet. What? The expansion plans for your design studio. The building I bought on Collins Avenue. We were planning every detail because I wanted it to be perfect for you. Victor ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she recognized from when he was stressed. I was going to give you your dream, Sophia. Your own firm, your own building, everything you'd ever talked about. Sophia's mind raced backward, replaying every photo Rachel had shown her. Julia's hand on his arm could have been familial. The dinner at their restaurant could have been a planning meeting. The late nights at the office could have been about blueprints and designs, not betrayal. But Rachel said. She started. Rachel said what? Victor's voice was sharp now. What did Rachel tell you? Sophia thought back to those conversations. Rachel pointing out how much time Victor spent with Julia. Rachel suggesting he was pulling away. Rachel showing her photos she'd somehow obtained. Rachel encouraging her to leave before she got hurt worse. Rachel, who had always seemed just a little too interested in Victor's schedule. Rachel, who had asked pointed questions about their marriage. Rachel, who had been single and bitter since her own divorce. Oh God, Sophia whispered. I hired an investigator, Victor continued, his voice rough with emotion. Not to spy on you, but to make sure you were safe. Thomas found you 3 weeks ago. I've been watching from a distance, trying to figure out why you left, trying to understand what I did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong, Sophia said quietly. I did. I believed lies instead of trusting you. I ran instead of asking questions. Victor closed the remaining distance between them. She could smell his cologne, familiar and heartbreaking. Why, Sophia? After everything we'd been through, why didn't you just ask me? Tears spilled down her cheeks. Because I was scared. My father cheated on my mother. I watched it destroy her. When Rachel showed me those photos, all I could see was history repeating itself. I am not your father. Victor's voice was firm but gentle. I made vows to you. Vows I never intended to break. Sophia's hand moved to her stomach again, and this time Victor noticed. His eyes followed the gesture, widening as understanding dawned. Sophia, he breathed. Are you? She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Victor's legs seemed to give out. He leaned against her car, his face a mixture of joy and pain and overwhelming emotion. How long have you known? 6 weeks, she whispered. I found out a month after I left. And you weren't going to tell me? The hurt in his voice was palpable. You were going to raise our child alone? I thought you'd betrayed me, Sophia said, her voice breaking. I thought you'd moved on with someone else. I couldn't bear the idea of being tied to you forever through a child while you loved someone else. Victor reached for her hands, and she let him take them. His touch was warm, solid, real. There is no one else. There has never been anyone else. From the moment I met you at that gallery opening 5 years ago, you've been the only woman I've seen. Sophia looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. The love she'd thought was gone. The commitment she'd doubted. The future she'd thrown away out of fear. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Victor pulled her into his arms, and she collapsed against his chest. He held her tightly, his hand cradling the back of her head the way he used to when she was upset. She could feel his heart pounding against her ear, could feel his own tears falling into her hair. We have a lot to talk about, he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. Sophia nodded against his chest. I know. But first, I need you to promise me something. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. Promise me you'll never run from me again. Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter what you hear or see or fear, you'll come to me first. I promise, she whispered. Victor's hand moved to her stomach, resting there with a gentleness that made fresh tears fall. "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby," she confirmed. Unraveling the past. Victor's hand remained on Sophia's stomach, his touch reverent and disbelieving. The parking garage suddenly felt too exposed, too cold for the conversation they needed to have. He looked at her pale face, the exhaustion evident in every line, and made a decision. "Come with me," he said softly. "We need to talk properly, and you need to sit down. You look like you're about to collapse." Sophia hesitated. 3 months ago, she would have followed him anywhere without question. Now, doubt still lingered like a shadow. But she was tired of running, tired of the weight of secrets and misunderstandings. She nodded. Victor led her to his car, a sleek black Mercedes parked 3 rows away. He opened the passenger door for her, a gesture so familiar it made her heart ache. The leather seat felt impossibly comfortable after her long shift. He climbed into the driver's seat but didn't start the engine. Instead, he turned to face her, his expression serious. "I need you to understand something," he began. "The day you left, I came home to an empty house. No note, no explanation, just your ring on the kitchen counter. I thought something terrible had happened to you. I called hospitals, police stations. I was losing my mind." Sophia closed her eyes, shame washing over her. "I thought leaving the ring would be explanation enough. It wasn't. It told me nothing except that you'd given up on us." Victor's voice cracked slightly. "I spent weeks trying to figure out what I'd done. I replayed every conversation, every moment. I thought maybe I'd been working too much, maybe I'd neglected you somehow." "You didn't neglect me," Sophia whispered. "I just jumped to conclusions." Victor reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through it for a moment, then handed it to her. On the screen was a photo of Julia, but in this picture, she was standing with an older woman who looked remarkably like Victor. Both were smiling at the camera. "That's Julia with her mother, my Aunt Teresa. My father's sister." He swiped to another photo showing a family gathering. Julia was there with her husband and 2 young children. She's been happily married for 8 years. Her husband, Marco, runs a construction company. They have 2 kids, and another on the way. Sophia stared at the photos, each one another piece of evidence of her terrible mistake. "Rachel never showed me these." "Because Rachel wasn't interested in the truth," Victor said quietly. "Thomas, my investigator, he did some digging into Rachel after I couldn't figure out why you'd left. Do you want to know what he found?" Sophia nodded, though dread was building in her chest. "Rachel has a pattern. This isn't the first marriage she's helped destroy. Her own divorce happened because her husband left her for someone else. Since then, she's systematically sabotaged the relationships of at least 3 other women in her social circle." Victor's jaw tightened. Thomas found emails, messages. "She targets women in happy marriages, plants seeds of doubt, manufactures evidence." "But why?" Sophia's voice was barely audible. "We were friends since college." "Were you, though? Or were you just someone she attached herself to?" Victor asked gently. "Think back, Sophia. When did she start really ingratiating herself into your life?" Sophia thought back. Rachel had reconnected with her about 6 months after the wedding. She'd shown up at a charity event, acting like they'd been close in college when they'd really only been casual acquaintances. Sophia had been flattered by the attention, happy to have a friend in Miami's social scene. After we got married, Sophia realized. She came back into my life after the wedding. And she was always asking about me, wasn't she? About my schedule, my business partners, where I was going? Victor watched her carefully. Thomas found searches on her computer. She was looking up Julia weeks before those photos appeared. She was planning this, Sophia. Sophia felt sick. I trusted her. I believed everything she told me. She's very good at what she does. She knew your history with your father. She knew exactly which fears to exploit. Victor's hand found hers again. But I need you to understand something else. Those photos she showed you were taken deliberately. She followed us to Marcello's. She was in the restaurant that night. How do you know? Because when I finally tracked her down to ask what she'd told you, she slipped up. She mentioned details about that dinner that only someone present could have known. What Julia was wearing. What we ordered. She was there, Sophia. She was watching us, waiting for a moment she could twist into something ugly. Sophia's hands shook. She thought about all the times Rachel had called her, always seeming to know when Victor was working late. The way she'd shown up with coffee and sympathy, ready to interpret every innocent action as proof of infidelity. The way she'd encouraged Sophia to leave immediately, to not give Victor a chance to explain. I was such a fool, Sophia whispered. You were scared, Victor corrected. And someone you trusted used that fear against you. But Sophia, you still made a choice. You chose to believe her instead of me. You chose to leave instead of asking questions. The truth of his words hurt, but Sophia knew she deserved the pain. You're right. I did. And I don't know how to make that right. Victor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. Do you know what the worst part was? Not knowing if you were safe. Not knowing if you had enough money, if you were eating properly, if you were okay. And then Thomas found you, and I saw you scrubbing floors, looking exhausted and thin, and I wanted to storm in and fix everything. But I knew you'd run again if I did. So you just watched, Sophia said, understanding dawning. You made sure I was safe from a distance. Your landlord had a mysterious benefactor who made sure your rent was always paid on time, even when you were short. The mechanic who fixed your car that broke down last month never charged you because someone had already covered it. The hospital cafeteria where you eat lunch has been giving you double portions because someone arranged it. Victor's eyes met hers. I couldn't take care of you the way I wanted to, but I wasn't going to let you struggle. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. You've been taking care of me this whole time. I'm your husband, Sophia. That doesn't stop just because you took off your ring. He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was her wedding ring, the platinum band with tiny diamonds they'd chosen together. I kept it. I kept hoping you'd come back for it. Sophia stared at the ring, remembering the day he'd slipped it on her finger. The promises they'd made. The future they'd planned. I kept mine too, she admitted. In my pocket. I couldn't throw it away, but I couldn't wear it either. Why tonight? Victor asked. Why did I find you tonight, of all nights? Sophia's hand moved to her stomach again. I had a doctor's appointment this morning. First ultrasound. I heard the heartbeat, Victor. I heard our baby's heartbeat, and all I could think about was how much you should have been there. How much I'd stolen from you by keeping this secret. Can I see? He asked quietly. Do you have pictures? She pulled her phone from her purse with trembling hands and showed him the ultrasound images. Victor took the phone, his eyes filling with tears as he looked at the tiny form on the screen. That's our baby, he whispered. That's really our baby. A girl, Sophia said softly. The doctor said she's growing perfectly. Due date is July 18th. Victor's face transformed. Joy, wonder, and overwhelming love played across his features. A daughter. We're having a daughter. I'm sorry you weren't there, Sophia said, fresh tears falling. I'm sorry I took that from you. I'm sorry for all of it. Victor set the phone down and took both her hands in his. Sophia, I need you to hear me. Really hear me. I forgive you. I'm angry, yes. I'm hurt that you didn't trust me. But I forgive you because I love you, and because that little girl in there deserves parents who can work through their mistakes. How can you forgive me so easily? It's not easy, Victor admitted. I've spent 3 months angry and heartbroken and confused. But seeing you tonight, knowing about our daughter, I realize something. We can keep punishing each other for past mistakes, or we can decide to build something better. Something stronger. Sophia wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe they could fix this. But doubt still nagged at her. What if I mess up again? What if my fear makes me run? Then I'll come find you again, Victor said simply. As many times as it takes. But Sophia, I need something from you too. I need you to promise to fight that fear. I need you to promise to talk to me when doubt creeps in. I need you to choose us, choose our family, even when it's hard. I promise, Sophia said, and this time she meant it with everything in her. I promise to fight. I promise to stay. I promise to trust you. Victor pulled her across the console and into his arms. She buried her face in his neck, breathing in the scent of him, feeling the solid warmth of his body against hers. For the first time in 3 months, she felt like she could breathe properly. We need help, she said against his shoulder. Professional help. I need to work through my trust issues, and we need to rebuild what I broke. I already found a counselor, Victor admitted. A specialist in marriage therapy. I've been seeing her alone, trying to figure out how to fix things if I ever got you back. She said she'd be happy to see us together whenever you're ready. Sophia pulled back to look at him. You've been going to therapy? I told you, Sophia. I wasn't giving up on us. I was just waiting for you to be ready to come back. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. I love you. I have loved you from the moment you argued with me about modern art at that gallery. I loved you when you said yes to marrying me. I loved you every day of our marriage, and I loved you every single day you were gone. That doesn't just stop. I love you too, Sophia whispered. I never stopped. Even when I thought you'd betrayed me, I couldn't stop loving you. Victor leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. They sat like that for a long moment, just breathing together, being together. Finally, he spoke again. Come home with me tonight. Not forever, not yet. But come home so we can talk more. So you can rest properly. So I can take care of you the way I should have been doing all along. Sophia hesitated for only a second before nodding. Okay. But Victor, I need time. I need to do this right. We have time, he assured her. We have the rest of our lives. Building tomorrow. The penthouse looked exactly as Sophia remembered it. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Biscayne Bay. The modern furniture they'd chosen together. The abstract painting she'd fallen in love with at an art fair hanging above the fireplace. But there was something different too. Photos of them were everywhere now, as if Victor had needed the visual reminders of their happiness. Sophia stood in the doorway, suddenly overwhelmed. This had been her home. Their home. The place where they'd laughed and fought and made love and planned their future. Walking back into it felt like stepping into a memory. I kept everything exactly as you left it, Victor said quietly behind her. I couldn't bring myself to change anything. It would have felt like admitting you weren't coming back. Sophia walked slowly into the living room. On the coffee table was a stack of design magazines with her sticky notes still marking pages. Her favorite throw blanket was draped over the couch. Even her reading glasses sat on the side table where she'd left them 3 months ago. Your studio is untouched too, Victor continued. I go in there sometimes, just to feel close to you. Your sketches are still on the drafting table. Your colored pencils still arranged by shade. Tears pricked at Sophia's eyes again. She'd cried more in the last hour than she had in the entire 3 months apart. You really weren't going to give up on me, were you? Never, Victor said firmly. He moved to the kitchen and started making tea, another familiar gesture that made her heart ache. Are you hungry? You need to eat. You're eating for two now. The concern in his voice was genuine, and Sophia realized he was right. She'd barely eaten all day, too nervous about the confrontation she'd been planning. Funny how plans changed. She'd intended to tell him about the pregnancy on her terms, in a public place where he couldn't make a scene. Instead, everything had spilled out in a parking garage. I could eat, she admitted. Victor moved around the kitchen with practiced ease, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. Within minutes, he'd prepared a plate of cheese, crackers, fruit, and sliced turkey. He set it in front of her along with the tea, chamomile with honey, just the way she liked it. Sit, he instructed gently. Eat. And then we're going to talk about everything. No more secrets, no more running. Just honesty. Sophia sat at the breakfast bar and began to eat. She hadn't realized how hungry she was until the first bite. Victor watched her with a mixture of satisfaction and concern, and she knew he was cataloging how thin she'd become, how exhausted she looked. The doctor said I need to gain weight, she offered. I've lost 12 pounds since I left. Stress and morning sickness. Victor's jaw tightened. You've been dealing with morning sickness alone? It wasn't that bad, Sophia lied, then caught herself. Honesty, she'd promised. Actually, it was terrible. For the first 6 weeks, I could barely keep anything down. That's how I knew something was wrong. I took 3 tests before I believed it. And you were scared, Victor guessed. Terrified, Sophia admitted. I was alone, working a minimum wage job, living in a tiny apartment. I could barely take care of myself, and suddenly I was responsible for another life. And the worst part was knowing you should have been there, knowing our baby deserved both parents, but believing I couldn't give you that because you'd moved on. Victor came around the counter and knelt beside her chair, taking her hand. I need you to understand something, Sophia. Even if I had moved on, even if what Rachel told you had been true, I would have stepped up. Our child would never have gone without. You would never have gone without. I know that now, Sophia said. But in the moment, all I could think about was my mother. How my father paid child support but was never really present. How she struggled to raise me alone while he started a new family with his mistress. I didn't want that for our baby. Your father was a coward, Victor said bluntly. I am not. And Sophia, even if we couldn't make our marriage work, would have been there. Every doctor's appointment, every milestone, every moment. You're not your mother, and I'm not your father. We're us, and we get to write our own story. Sophia squeezed his hand. I want to write that story together. I want our daughter to grow up with both parents who love each other, not just tolerate each other for her sake. Then that's what we'll do, Victor said. But it's going to take work. Real work. Therapy, communication, learning to trust again. I know. Sophia paused, then asked the question that had been nagging at her. What about Rachel? What happens to her? Victor's expression darkened. What do you want to happen to her? I don't know, Sophia admitted. Part of me wants her to pay for what she did. But another part just wants to never see her again, to move forward without looking back. Thomas compiled evidence of her pattern of behavior. We could take it to the police, press charges for harassment, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Victor's voice was measured, controlled. Or we could simply cut her out of our lives and let karma handle the rest. Sophia thought about Rachel, about the woman she'd thought was her friend. About all the phone calls and coffee dates and words of poison disguised as concern. I want to confront her. I want her to know that I know what she did. But after that, I just want her gone. Then that's what we'll do, Victor agreed. Together. They talked through the night. Victor told her about the building he'd purchased for her design firm, about the plans he and Julia had made. Sophia told him about her job at the hospital, about the kindness of her coworker Maria, about the fear that had kept her up at night. They talked about the baby, about names and nurseries and the future they wanted to build. As dawn broke over the bay, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Sophia found herself curled up on the couch with Victor, his hand resting on her stomach as if he could feel their daughter through her skin. I don't want to rush this, she said softly. I want to do it right this time. Therapy first, rebuilding trust, making sure we're solid before I move back in permanently. Victor nodded, though she could see the disappointment in his eyes. I understand. But Sophia, I need you to know that this is still your home. Whether you're here every night or just visiting, this is yours. Everything I have is yours. I know, she whispered. And I appreciate that. But I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own too. That I'm not running from my problems or running to you because it's easy. I need to choose us from a place of strength, not fear or desperation. You're stronger than you think, Victor said, pressing a kiss to her temple. You survived 3 months alone while pregnant and working yourself to exhaustion. You're one of the strongest people I know. I didn't feel strong, Sophia admitted. I felt broken. Broken things can be repaired, Victor said. Sometimes they're even stronger at the broken places once they heal. Over the following weeks, they fell into a new rhythm. Sophia kept her apartment and her job, but she saw Victor regularly. They went to couples therapy twice a week, working through the trust issues, the communication breakdown, the fears that had driven them apart. Dr. Patricia Morrison was patient and insightful, helping them both see their roles in the breakdown of their marriage. In one session, Dr. Morrison asked Sophia to identify the moment she'd first doubted Victor. Sophia thought back carefully. It wasn't the photos, she realized. It was before that. Rachel had been planting seeds for months. Little comments about how busy Victor was, how distant he seemed. She made me question everything before there was anything concrete to question. And Victor, when did you first notice Sophia pulling away? Dr. Morrison asked. Victor frowned, thinking. I didn't. That's the problem. I was so focused on the surprise, on making everything perfect, that I didn't see her withdrawing. I should have noticed. Should have, Dr. Morrison repeated. That's a phrase you both use a lot. You should have trusted, you should have noticed, you should have communicated. But, should have, doesn't help us. What matters is what you'll do differently going forward. They learned to communicate better, to voice concerns before they became fears. Victor learned to be more present, to share his plans even when he wanted them to be surprises. Sophia learned to ask questions instead of making assumptions, to fight her instinct to run when things got difficult. The confrontation with Rachel came 6 weeks after that night in the parking garage. They met her at a cafe, both of them united in their purpose. Rachel's face had gone pale when she saw them together. Sophia, she'd started, but Victor cut her off. We know what you did, he said quietly. We have evidence of your pattern of behavior. The emails, the surveillance, everything. Rachel's expression shifted from shock to defiance. I was trying to protect her. I was trying to save her from making the same mistake I did. By lying to her? Sophia's voice was steady, stronger than she'd expected. By manipulating photos and planting doubts? That's not protection, Rachel. That's sabotage. You were too happy, Rachel spat, her mask finally dropping. It wasn't fair. I lost everything, and you got the perfect husband, the perfect life. I just wanted you to see that it wasn't real. But it was real, Sophia said softly. It is real. And you almost destroyed it because you couldn't stand to see someone else have what you lost. They left her sitting there, and Sophia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Letting go of the anger, of the betrayal, freed something inside her. As Sophia's pregnancy progressed, she and Victor grew closer. He came to every doctor's appointment, his face lighting up each time they saw their daughter on the ultrasound. He read pregnancy books and asked Dr. Morrison questions about how to best support Sophia. He was patient when her hormones made her cry over commercials, and gentle when her fears about being a good mother surfaced. For months after that night in the parking garage, Sophia moved back home. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Because they'd built something stronger than what they'd had before, something based on honesty and communication and hard-won trust. The nursery came together slowly, both of them choosing every detail with care. Soft yellow walls because they wanted something cheerful but not overwhelming. A bookshelf that Victor built himself, slightly crooked but filled with love. A rocking chair by the window where Sophia could feed their daughter while watching the sun rise over the bay. On a warm July evening, 3 days past her due date, Sophia's water broke. Victor remained calm, exactly as he'd practiced, timing contractions and gathering bags and driving carefully to the hospital. He held her hand through 17 hours of labor, never leaving her side, whispering encouragement and love. When their daughter finally arrived, screaming and perfect and impossibly tiny, Victor cut the cord with shaking hands. The nurse placed the baby on Sophia's chest, and they both cried as they looked at the little life they'd created. "She's perfect," Victor whispered, his finger stroking their daughter's tiny hand. "She's absolutely perfect. What should we name her?" Sophia asked, though they discussed dozens of options. Victor looked at his wife, at the woman who'd run from him and found her way back, at the mother of his child and the love of his life. "Hope," he said. "Her name should be Hope. Because she represents everything good that came from our second chance." Sophia smiled through her tears. "Hope Victoria Romano. It's perfect." As Sophia held their daughter and Victor held them both, she thought about the parking garage where their story had changed course. About the midnight confrontation that could have ended in goodbye but instead became hello again. About the truth that had almost stayed hidden but had instead changed all their lives. She'd been so afraid of repeating her mother's story that she'd almost created it herself. But instead, they'd written something new. Something better. A story of mistakes and forgiveness, of trust lost and rebuilt, of love that refused to die even in the darkness. "Thank you," she whispered to Victor as Hope dozed between them. "For what?" he asked. "For not giving up on us. For finding me. For forgiving me." Victor pressed a kiss to her forehead, then to Hope's tiny head. "Thank you for coming back. For choosing us. For giving me the family I always dreamed of." Outside the hospital window, the sun was setting over Miami, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. A new day was ending, but for the Romano family, a beautiful new chapter was just beginning. One built on truth, on trust, and on a love that had survived the darkness and emerged stronger on the other side. Hope stirred in Sophia's arms, her tiny fingers curling around Victor's thumb. In that moment, holding their daughter between them, they both understood what they'd almost lost and what they'd gained by fighting for each other. Some stories end in parking garages at midnight. But theirs was just getting started.